Welcome learners to this mini lecture on the Paleotechnic phase. Today's topic will be the new barbarism, which corresponds with pages 153 to 155 of Lewis Mumford's Technics and Civilization. I thought it'd be appropriate to begin this mini lecture with a discussion of what exactly is meant by barbarism. So, like all good students and learners, I turn to dictionary.com for a definition, and from the World English Dictionary was provided for as follows: a brutal, coarse, or ignorant act. 2, the condition of being backward, coarse, or ignorant. 3, a substandard or erroneously constructed or derived word or expression. And 4, any act or object that offends against accepted taste. So these are all definitions of barbarism. Right now, what I'd like you to do is to look at these definitions, take about 8 seconds, and in your mind, determine which of these definitions you think applies to Mumford's title of this section, The New Barbarism. Okay, that was 8 seconds, and I'll tell you which one I chose. I chose number 2, the condition of being backward, coarse, or ignorant. And I think that goes right along with the previous section, England's belated leadership, and the fact that England was actually behind the rest of Western Europe throughout much of the Middle Ages. But the interesting thing here is that this condition this condition of barbarism was the result of progress. This state of barbarism occurs immediately following the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, and during a period in history when game-changing innovations were being invented almost as a matter of factly. And the discussion board kind of deals with that this week. This week's discussion will deal with that. It's helpful to look at this Paleotechnic phase as a break from the past. And one fact that emerges as we study these 3 major phases of technological development is that the Eotechnic phase encompassed a longer range of years than the Paleotechnic phase. If you look back and think back to our study on the Eotechnic phase, it lasted roughly from 1000 to 1750 AD. While the Paleotechnic phase, there again roughly, these figures aren't exact cutoff dates, but the Paleotechnic phase lasts roughly from about 1750 to 1900, which represents only 1/5 of the span for the Eotechnic phase. I make this point only because I think it is important to understand the break from the past that accompanied this Paleotechnic phase. And one of the main facets of that break was the conversion from life values to pecuniary values. And what I mean by that is that the increasing quantification of techniques, this need to count, to quantify, to measure, with that increasing quantification came more of a reliance on money, finance, and profits as a value system rather than life or quality of life. And we see that in the poor social conditions that exist during this period and during the Industrial Revolution. For the workers, there was steady, unremitting toil. That steady, unremitting toil was spent in repetitive and monotonous work that relied nothing on the skill of the worker, and like the handicraft industry did before the Industrial Revolution, but only upon the human being an automaton and repeating some motion over and over again. Barely subsistence wages were what these folks were paid. And we're going to see a little bit of this as I read a testimony gathered by Lord Ashley's Mines Commission, which was a investigative commission conducted by Parliament, much like congressional hearings and committees conduct investigations in our country in our modern age. So please bear with me here. I'm going to read testimony number 26. This young lady was named Patience Kershaw. She was age 17, and this was from May 15th, 1842. My father has been dead about a year. My mother is living and has 10 children, 5 lads and 5 lasses. The oldest is about 30, the youngest is 4. 3 lasses go to the mill, all the lads are colliers, 2 getters and 3 hurriers. 1 lives at home and does nothing. Mother does naught but look after home. All my sisters have been hurriers, but 3 went to the mill. Alice went because her legs swelled from hurrying in cold water when she was hot. I never went to day school. I go to Sunday school, but I cannot read or write. I go to pit at 5 o'clock in the morning and come out at 5 in the evening. I get my breakfast of porridge and milk first. I take my dinner with me, a cake, and eat it as I go. I do not stop or rest any time for the purpose. I get nothing else until I get home, and then have potatoes and meat, not every day meat. I hurry in the clothes I've now got on, trousers and ragged jacket. The bald place upon my head is made by thrusting the corves. My legs have never swelled, but my sisters did when they went to mill. I hurry the corves, a mile and more underground and back. They weigh 300 cwt. I hurry 11 a day. I wear a belt and chain at the workings to get the corves out. The getters that I work for are naked except their caps. They pull off all their clothes. I see them at work when I go up. Sometimes they beat me, if I am not quick enough, with their hands. They strike upon my back. The boys take liberties with me sometimes. They pull me about. I am the only girl in the pit. There are about 20 boys and 15 men. All the men are naked. I would rather work in the mill than in the coal pit. So you can see by this testimony that the conditions in these mines were just terrible. And probably the conditions in the mines were some of the worst. But even the conditions in the mills and the mill workers, they were working, at least 12 hours a day. There was no 8-hour day, no workman's compensation, no, not even any kind of fair compensation or anything like that. So that is one thing to keep in mind on this as we talk about this new barbarism. That's a huge part of this barbarism, is the poor conditions of these workers who really are creating the capital and creating the profits for these stock companies that own the mines and the mills and the means of production. All right, just to summarize things for this week, make sure to complete the activity on the threaded discussion boards that correspond with this learning session. Also, make sure to complete the essay question on Learning Session 4 assessment that corresponds with this mini lecture. This time, I'd like to thank you for watching this mini lecture.